Alrighty, as you can see, you had to take a quick little break in between on that video. Had someone mosey in, and I don't think they wanted to be in on the video, which is okay. Some people don't mind, some people do. But anyway, my personal last step, I personally do, and it is a good idea. I use motor bearing assembly oil myself. You can use 2-cycle oil. It's a lightweight oil. And I put a few drops in the cylinder. I can look in there, see the couple drops come out. Move my little wand around a little bit. This helps us in 2 ways. It lubricates our cylinder for when we have to turn the drive gear to get our chain installed, and our piston will go up and down, and it's not doing dry. So I'll roll the motor around so that oil will get all over the cylinder wall. And then when it goes up and down, it's not going steel to steel without any lubrication whatsoever, because it doesn't see any lubrication until the gas and oil mix flow through the motor. That is what lubricates it. So this way I don't take any chance on harming my cylinder. And also my exhaust port here, I can see the piston in there, in that hole. I don't know if you can, but I can. And I'm going to put a couple drops of oil across the top of it, or the side, not the top. That way when my ring goes by the port entrance, it also is not dry. And just because I can, and I have a bottle with a little snout on it, I am going to do the same on this side, because a little oil doesn't hurt. It burns right when you go to fire it up. And another little bonus is, besides lubricating the cylinder, it helps with the compression and helps the engine start a little easier, because it helps the rings seal to suck the oil and gas mixture through your intake when you initially very first let go of the clutch to start your engine. And I had noticed in the past, ever since I started doing it that way, that it did start a little easier out on the road for the road test. Okay, so before I take this motor over and start applying it to the old bicycle, I take just a good old paper towel and I block these holes. Why I do this is because, God forbid, something drop inside of one of those holes, get in my cylinder. I'm not aware of it, and or I have to fish it out. Either way, God forbid it stay in there, I don't know it, and then I go to start it up, and a piece flopping around in there will completely damage my engine, and I will never even get to hear it start. So for the remainder of the build, while I'm mounting the engine, I like to plug up holes, just to make sure nothing dirt and anything else gets inside there. So now my engine is completely prepped. Like I said, you don't absolutely have to do this, but it is a good practice. So now we're on to our third step, placing the engine on the frame. Now if you're a new bike builder, you're getting ready to get a surprise of something else you're going to have to order before you can mount your engine. And I'm going to show you that here in just a second. I don't know why anybody that sells these engine kits, I mean from the guys that have motorized bike complete shops that all they do is sell motorized bike stuff, and or Amazon or eBay, or I don't really care. Why don't they mention that you're going to need a different front engine mount adapter? I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to make a steel one myself, which I will show you. I don't expect people to make those at home. I try to keep these videos for the guys that are at home and don't have an entire, shop to fabricate up a bunch of parts. That's the only little upgrade / fabrication I'm going to have to do to the bike, but it makes it simpler for me to mount the engine. It makes it a way better way to mount the engine on the bike. If you've ever looked into motorized bikes, they have their own aluminum chassis out there with a welded front motor mount. And I do the same thing to the bike. Why should just the aluminum guys that spend all the money on that chassis have the best motor mount? So I'm going to duplicate that small version on this bike, but you will need to get online and measure the tube of your bike, or tell them if it's a fat tube bike or not. Sometimes that's all they ask, but you're going to need that to mount your engine, because this engine will not fit on the frame. So let me show you what I mean. Got the engine sitting in the frame. You're all ready to go, and you find out that it does not sit down on the frame. The tube is too fat. Even if you wanted to use the flat plate U-bolt connection to the bike frame, not gonna do it, because not even the studs pass the frame. So you have to get an adapter, and then you're dead in the water until you get your adapter. That's why I'm mentioning this. If you're watching this video before you build a bike and you're trying to obtain some information, that is going to be some helpful information. So when you order your engine kit, you can also find and get your fat tube adapter engine mount. And that way, at this point, you're not stuck. All right, myself, when I place the engine in the frame, I put the carburetor on. I just slide it on. It's not ready to go or anything. But that way I can get my float bowl as level as I possibly can. Now, if I wanted to level up the bike a little bit more, where it is actually level, see, my float bowl is level. Yes, if you have to tilt the motor frontwards or backwards a little bit to fit your chassis, it is 100% fine. The carburetors will run at a little bit of an angle. Doesn't seem to bother them. When I put mine on, I always try to get a little clearance between the down post there with the seat post in it and my air cleaner. That way, in the future, if I have to remove the carburetor, I can get it out of there. If you jam that tightly against that, you're going to probably have to remove the engine or the intake bolt every time you want to take the carburetor off. But if you leave a little gap between here and here, have your carburetor bowl as flat as you possibly can, that is the optimal mounting scenario. A quick peek at what I have so far. I just use the mounting plate that comes with the kit. Some kits haven't been putting them in there, I've noticed, but it comes in handy for me when it does. I weld a small tab to the back of it. If I can get out of the shadow, prepare the frame there, and I'll run a couple small beads of weld down that. And it will be just like the factory aluminum bikes with a solid engine mount. Just thought I would share that before I get any further. You won't have to worry about that if you're not going to do the welded mount like I do. You'll just have your motor mount that hooks to your big chassis here that adapts down to those studs, and you'll hook it up there with nuts and bolts, where I'm doing it with a weld. And once again, I understand everybody can't do this. That's why I show you the option, or mention the option, that you can make this little mount, or you can just buy the mount, mount it up, and move on. All right, that's enough about the mount. Let me get this welded in there. Then it's time to start mounting other stuff. I'm back. All right, as you can see, I got my welded mount installed. Pardon the tape. Had to do a little painting around where the weld mark was so it looks professional and doesn't rust in the future, or both. So now it is time for me to take off my clutch actuator cover. So we can install the chain. We'll check our little bucking bar, which is fully greased. more in there. Can't get enough grease. Little ball tried to come out, but we got him. All right, time to feed the chain through there. Chain time. Now I personally just drape it over the top. That way something's holding my chain. I come in through the bottom. You can use your finger. I choose to use this little pick. My 19mm socket. I must first remove my paper towel plug from the spark plug so it doesn't suck it in the hole, because now is when that lubrication in the cylinder comes in handy, because we'll be turning the motor over. Now the piston's going up and down, lubricating the cylinder way before you ever get outside, and make it go up and down real fast under a load. And that is how I get my chain through my drive gear. Okay, it's time to shorten the chain. We don't have to make it perfect exact tight. We just want to get rid of all that excess because we don't really need all that. So as you'll see, we need one link sticking out on that side. I always go toward the back, so I'm going to need to do the correct length on this side. Now, if you'll look really close, we need to do it with the one link that is on the inside of the two prongs, if you will, two side links. Because if you look at that, it's that way, and then the one main link goes in between it. If we break it and put the pin out of that one and just got our little fork sticking out, we won't be able to connect our chain like so, because that's what we need is two outer sticking links. We can't have the one where we break it there and it has the pin and no roller. So you have to look at it real close. I will stretch that tight. See this one right here? If I push that pin out right there, then I just have my two forks, because you can kind of hold it and you can kind of see that it's inside it. So I want to back up one length. As you can see that one, if I took the two sides off, I have that sticking out. I know it's hard to understand. It's kind of hard to explain in a video, but hopefully the video will give you the information you need to break your chain at the proper length. I'll mark this one so I do not get confused on which one I should be pressing on. Not everybody has a chain breaker. That's what I have. But you can use the old school method of take a grinder and grind the head off the pin and drive it out with a punch. Or if you absolutely positively have to, I would guess a nail would work in a pinch. That should be it. Get her off there. Oh, I'll screw it down a little further. Got my hands in the way. But this is what I was speaking of. Is a perfect example. I cannot hook my master link to that. If you do the wrong one, it doesn't fit. Two, even if it did, no roller. What we needed was that to assemble our master link as so. So we'll discard that. Poke that at the right chain link. And we are in good shape, because we will put our chain tensioner on it and take up the rest of that slag. Just a friendly tip, connecting your chain. Got my master link in there. Put my little plate on there. Now the wheel rotates forward, which drags the chain that way. I refer to that as the little fishy mouth. We want our little fish mouth that is open, riding the roller coaster backwards. So when it goes around, comes around, goes over the wheel, back around, I hope my animation's helping, that it's riding that way. Why do we want it that way? Because if it rides this way and goes with the chain, and God forbid it should ever bump something, it will knock this off, your chain will fall apart in the middle of the road, and you are stranded like Fred. If there's anybody named Fred that's ever been stranded, you know what I'm talking about. So we will want the open mouth to that. You ride toward the back, as of such. And there we have it, clipped on. And this way it can ride that way. Just a friendly little tip when connecting your chain. After shortening our chain to length, I have went ahead and installed my upgraded version of the chain tensioner. I am partial to the spring-loaded chain tensioner myself. What comes in your kit is the standard one. They work 100% adequately. Install just like this one. Take these half moon plates off, place it back there, flip those over just like that plate, so it grabs the frame as so. And you can place it anywhere. Just bad demonstration there. Anywhere need be. This one has the slanted slot, so I want to move that all the way down when I install it. That way in the future I can move it up and have some adjustment for my chain. If I put it all the way up here and then I mount it, I have no room for adjustment, and then I have to move the entire thing. So I always slide that down there, snug it, install it. When I'm using them, I do use them. But if I have the choice, and I had the choice on this particular build, I'm going with the spring tensioner. It always keeps a little tension on my chain. Not a whole lot, because I want a little free play. I don't want to put any pressure on my chain, pulling the motor and the bike wheel together, because that puts undue stress on my rear bearings. So that is why I am partial to this, and it does deliver a smoother ride. If you have the choice, I would go with the frame mounted one. They do sell a ton of these with the spring loaded tensioner wheel for your clutch actuator door cover. I am partial to these because at least I have something back here and it's guiding my chain back, and it's not free flowing all the way back to my rear sprocket. Also, when you start the bike, I'll turn this backwards and show you. When it's going naturally the right way, it rides smooth like this. But when you pop the clutch and you have your little spring wheel one up here, it goes all the way down and puts a real torquing on that. Only when you drop the clutch to start the motor. After it fires back up, everything goes back to normal like that, and you're in good shape. But anyway, enough of that chain stuff for right now. That is adequate to take it out for its first test run when we get the rest of the accoutrement mounted on the bike, and we are ready for our first test run. So far, so good. We're ready with the chain. Now we'll move up to the middle. We should be done back here for a while.